It's me, Dr. D. We're here. We're going to talk about stuff. What do you want to talk about? What do you want to talk about? You want to talk about Reddit stuff? Hey, me too. Let's do that. My dad got me this cup for when I graduated. Or I guess technically it wasn't for when I graduated, but I had gotten out of school finally, and I was a chiro for a couple years, and he came up and visited me here in Massachusetts, and he got me this cup. It's got the channel's name on it. Look at that. I love my dad. He's a good guy. He's a good guy. Good guy, that dad of mine. That's what I looked like when I graduated. Do you see the resemblance? Anyway, so I was actually requested to do something similar to this by the lady, the lady love, Kara, and she said that I should talk about something that I'm actually super passionate about, which is male health, I guess, in regards more to like the mental health aspect of it, because I do think it's something that's pretty frequently overlooked because of the current environment that at least Americans live in. I can't say for the whole world, but there's definitely a bit of a weird growing pain that's going on in men's health in regards to we're perceived how we're supposed to feel about certain things, and there's a lot of expectations that fall on the men, and then there's this whole like manosphere thing going on, which I will say has its ups and downs for sure. There's a lot of negatives to the manosphere, but there's a lot of good things you could probably take out of it too, and it's unfortunately one of those things that gets thrown out with it's the baby with the bathwater kind of situation, where there's probably some good to be learned from it, but there's a lot of negatives that kind of come along with it. And I'm not here to say who's right or wrong on any of this stuff, but I always like to look at everything, realize that even a lot of the bad things that have happened in human history, not to say that the manosphere is like that bad per se, but some of the worst things that have happened in human history at some point probably came from somebody's viewpoint that it was not a bad thing. So even when you look at some of the worst regimes of the entire world, it's very possible that a lot of these super evil things probably started from a good place. It got bad real fast or whatever. Nobody usually wakes up in the morning hoping that people don't like them. That's kind of the way I like to look at it. So I think that if you look at something and focus on the good part of it, and then discard the bad stuff. Obviously, looking back in history is one thing, but like if you look at something that you could potentially get some kind of value out of, I think is really important. And so I like to talk about men's health in that regard, because I do think that there is a bit of a what you could call like an epidemic. I think that word is thrown around a lot, probably a little bit too frequently, but there's definitely a version of what people consider manly where it's not necessarily serving people super well, and I do think that men suffer because of it. And I'll never be the first one to say that women's health is not just as equally important, but I do think that it's important to make sure there's some kind of advocate talking for men's health. And I can't necessarily talk about women's health because I'm not a lady, and there's a lot of stuff about that I don't understand. So I don't want to sit here and mansplain how that works. So I'm going to mansplain how mansplaining works. I guess is a good way to put it. So anyway, what I did was I went on Reddit and I found a message or a post or whatever that I think kind of resonates with a lot of what I'm about to talk about, and let's get to it. Okay, here we go. Is 38 too old to start over? Divorced, no job, no savings, and starting from absolute zero. No, the answer to that question is obviously no. Important for anybody to realize that at the very beginning of this entire thing. And no matter where you are in your life and all that, it's not too late to have a new beginning. And we'll get into that in a second, of course. But this is an Ask Men Over 30. As a male who is over 30, I'm being asked. So I think I have some experience and some skin in this game. So I think I'm okay to answer this. Hey, everyone. I'm a 38-year-old man, recently divorced, and I am currently sitting at absolute zero. It's hard to compare myself to other guys my age. Most people in their late 30s have a stable career, a car, and at least in mid-level management are running their own business. They know their worth and have built a foundation. Meanwhile, I am starting completely from scratch. After the divorce, I left the apartment to my wife and kids. Thankfully, there's no mortgage on it, but it means I have no place to live and no rent secured. I feel completely overwhelmed and honestly a bit terrified. Is 38 too old to rebuild a life from scratch? Is 38 too old to rebuild a life from scratch? Has anyone else been in a similar spot at this age and managed to turn things around? I could use some perspective, practical advice on what steps to first take, or just some brutal honesty. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to just say the major line in this whole thing that really resonates to me as a male, kind of expand on it in a second, is the whole he left his apartment for his ex-wife and his kid. That is probably the huge crux of what I'm about to talk about, is that sentence right there. And the rest of it, I think, is a little bit more common knowledge. I think anytime anybody ever thinks about their current position in life, our brains as humans, I think men do it a little bit more than females, generically speaking, is we are supposed to kind of compare ourselves to other people who are in similar situations to us, because it is a way for us to gauge how good we are at doing in our lives, because that's how, when you really boil it down to anatomy and physiology, that's how men mate, essentially speaking. And men when you really boil it down to its most biological function, we are supposed to mate so that we can continue the race of humanity or whatever. And because men are, again, very generically speaking, are supposed to be the risk takers, essentially. We're the ones that are supposed to chase after the females in order for the whole mating process to work, right? In order for that to be successful, men have to feel confident in where they are compared to other guys in order to successfully attract a lady, right? Obviously, times have very much changed since when we were cavemen and blah, blah, blah. But unfortunately, what happens is that the human brain is not moving at the same speed. The wiring doesn't exactly match the speed of how it is that sociology has changed. There's actually a really good book about it. I'm going to get up and grab it. So this is actually one of the best books I think I've ever read. It's called The Status Game by Will Storr. Really, really fantastic book. It goes over a lot of this stuff. It's the whole idea of why it is that status and, comparing yourself to others is one of the reasons why, it's one of the why do humans do it, right, is the major question. And one of the major reasons is what I just said. Because without the ability to compare ourselves to others, we don't really know how well it is that we're doing it. Because, what framework do we base ourselves on, right? There's no, manual that we get it when we're born. It's you're supposed to be about here. You're supposed to be about this landmark. And so yesterday I made a comment about it, actually, and when I was doing something on a Twitch stream, I said to myself, for a 34-year-old, I feel like I'm doing okay, but even I feel like I'm way behind. And as a quick little comparison, if I were to compare myself to most other 34-year-olds, there's going to be 34-year-olds that are way ahead of me in regards to what people perceive as valuable things. And there's going to be a ton of people that are way behind me. And I'll say that, generically speaking, happiness cannot be determined by the amount of money in your bank account. If you look at the number in your bank account, what you will instinctively do is think to yourself, wow, I still wish it was more, because the goalpost will move. And it's not only about money, obviously, but when you think about what most people complain about whenever it comes to feeling like they're way behind, it's almost always some kind of material asset. And that's kind of what I'm going to get into here with that other line. And it's important to realize that if you constantly want more stuff, that is one of the definitions of poverty. Poverty is not necessarily not having enough, although that is a very important feature of it, because people that are in a true poverty, they just don't have enough to survive, right? And that's a whole nother point of discussion. That's not like a man or a female thing at all. Poverty is the wanting for more. If you are a person who has what they need to survive, if you look at a Maslow's hierarchy, chart, where you have the things that you need in order to survive, if you only see the things you don't have, it's very easy to see the holes and the gaps in the floorboards that you're going to fall through, instead of the entire floor that's still there, where you can very happily just live your happy little life and be content and blah, blah, blah. The human mind is obviously a super important part of this. But of course, I would be remiss to say that it's not a good idea to compare yourself to others, because of the fact that we all have different levels of what we're working with. We all have different foundations. And so for me, I was lucky to have some pretty decent parents who have been able to help me with certain things that have helped me be able to get to where I am now. There's some people that don't have that luxury. Some people have a little bit of a silver spoon in their mouth. They get born and then they're like, okay, well, I'm financially speaking, I'm going to be set for my entire life. I don't really need to work all that hard. Why would you compare yourself to that person when you have an entirely different set of just parameters that the other people don't have to worry about, which in good and for good and for bad. What I like to think of in this situation is you might feel like you're starting from rock bottom, but what's happening is that you are a 38-year-old man who has 38 years of experience of just being on this earth. And if you downplay the fact that you've been around this long and you feel like you haven't gained anything from doing that in regards to either some kind of skill, professional skill, or even just the emotional intelligence that comes with being alive and just, I don't want to say dealing, but, managing yourself around other people, well then that's not a fair comparison to make against yourself. The only person that you really should compare yourself against is yourself. Do you feel like you're going in the right direction? If you don't, well, instead of despairing, despair a little bit, that's fine, I guess, whatever. It's a natural human instinct. Instead of despairing, the first thing I would ask is, well, what am I doing that is not serving me? And that's super important, I think, for men. So if you're comparing yourself to other dudes who have a nicer car, or have a nicer house, or live in a nicer part of town, there's going to be downsides to that. Not everything is a good thing. So they get a nicer car, but now they got to pay that thing off, or they got to have a huge mortgage with a bad interest rate because they got a house that they maybe not were actually financially ready to do. It's not about comparing yourself to others. You have to be happy with where you are, no matter where you are, because no matter where you go, no matter how much you try to run away from it, when you look in the mirror, you're going to be right there. And if you bring along these little habits that follow you along and just make you miserable on their own, well, that's just not serving you. That does not serve a practical purpose. So that's the first thing you're going to have to conquer. Now, how do you do that? We'll start focusing on the good. Let's go through this. A little bit more minutely. The guy's 38 years old, so he's approaching middle age. You're not old enough to where you have to worry about the ageism going on with employment. So I think 38, you're probably still okay. You know, once you hit that 40 mark, once you start getting into like 50s and 60s, it's harder to get a job because people don't want to hire somebody they think is only going to work for them a couple of years. At 38, I don't think that's something you really need to worry about. I don't know why you got divorced, whether it was amicable or not. If it was an amicable divorce, I mean, it sounds like an amicable divorce because of the fact that you gave him your apartment. You'd think they would let you stay there, but again, I don't have all the details on that, and I don't want to speculate any further. Just because when there's wife and kids, you know, but he said thankfully there's no mortgage to it. So again, I don't know a whole lot about that. How supportive was your wife, and like what are the situations around that? That could dictate a lot of what you have available to you here in the near future for sure. And yeah, what was your job? Like, what skills do you have? Are you like a programmer, or are you welder, or whatever? And the good news is that, especially in America, it's actually, at least in my opinion, I don't have, you know, empirical evidence of this, but it's actually probably not that hard to get a really solid, well-paying job if you are aware of trade schools and stuff like that. You don't have to go to school for 4 years to get a bachelor's degree in whatever in order to get a job that would probably pay pretty well, especially if you're a guy who likes to do stuff with your hands. There's a lot of really good trades out there. You could become a welder, become a carpenter, plumber, and those schools are, at least at this point, I mean, it's probably still not cheap, but there's definitely a preponderance for that kind of career because there's a shortage of a lot of these skilled, you know, workers. And there's definitely scholarships out there that can help you financially. And even if you have to take out a student loan, you could probably pay it back. It's going to be brutal work. Don't get me wrong. There's a reason that those jobs tend to be a little bit short on people, right? Because it's hard work. Honestly, that's rewarding in itself. And I think if this chiro thing doesn't work out, that's probably what I would do, is I would go become a plumber or whatever and go do that. There's nothing wrong with it. There's a lot of honor in that kind of stuff. The honor aspect of it leads into what I think is going to be the main crux of this conversation. When you do something like have a divorce, a lot of times divorces get very messy. Again, I don't have all the details here. Why did you break up? Were you both kind of like on the same page? You have a kid or kids, because that's a plural. The idea behind that, would the lady kind of let you like sleep in the other room of this house? You know, you'd have the benefit of having the kids around, blah, blah, blah. Again, we'll do daddy details to that we just don't have access to. Let's just say you have to leave. Do you have any friends you could live with who can literally just like let you sleep on the couch for like a couple weeks for you to kind of figure out what the heck is going on? The one thing you don't want to do is you don't want to stagnate, right? Definitely don't stagnate. What this tells me, I'm going to pretend that maybe this is a little bit more amicable, whether they got the apartment on their own through the machinations of lawyers and all that. That's another thing. But it sounds like you're happy that they have the apartment. And in that way, it shows to me that you are a good person, quite honestly. If you are able to walk away from this and you feel good knowing that the people that are important in your life and were once important, at least as far as the wife, hopefully the kids are still important to you. And obviously the wife is, at least on some level, right? Because of the fact that, you know, she's the mom of your kids. On some level, she has to stay important for that, even though, you know, the romantic relationship might turn into something else completely. The fact that you are happy that they are taken care of, I think speaks volumes of the quality of you as a person. And I'll tell you right now that if you have all of the hard skills of knowing how to tear a computer apart and rebuild it, that's a really useful skill to have. But in this world, especially in a world that is becoming dominated by electronic stuff like AI and all that, the soft skills, the ability to talk to people, the ability to make people feel welcome, the ability to make people feel good while they are around you is such an insanely powerful ability. And if you're going to succeed in this world, those skills are significantly more useful in regards to being successful. Not to say that the hard skills are not useful, but if you're able to get into a position where you're being compared, let's just say that you're looking for a promotion in a business, if you have better social skills, there's a very good chance that you will outpace other people in your field that maybe are technically speaking better at their skills. But when you really boil down what is a company is made of people, and people like people that like them, and they like people that they want to like. So being good with people is the most important skill. And so if you feel like you're starting from absolute zero, I don't think you are. Or if you have the social skills that have come with just being alive for 38 years on this world, and you, generally speaking, you can get people to like you, I think you're in quite an amazing position. Now, I don't know how much your savings are. I don't know, you know, there's a lot of questions here that I have to purely speculate on. When you really boil it down, it doesn't seem like you're in the worst position in the entire world. There's probably people in a lot worse position. Again, you're probably not a good idea to compare yourself to others, but maybe in this case, look down a tiny bit and be like, wow, at least I'm not one of them. I think that the ability for you to look at your wife and your ex-wife or whatever and kids being okay, to me, speaks volumes of you being a good guy. And obviously there's a definite definition, or at least a perceived perceived perception that men are supposed to be the providers in the relationship. And even in a relationship you're really not in anymore, if you are actually divorced with your wife, you're still trying to provide for him. That's a pretty noble quality. Is what I would say. Again, if that's actually the case or not, or whether it was done through legal stuff, I can't say. I don't think that you're in as much of a hard situation as you are, that you might think you are. The first thing I would do is try and find some kind of steady ground, whether that's like staying with a friend or maybe go back and live like maybe your parents, whatever little thing that you happen to find. I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that'd be probably willing to help. Get a job and try and become financially stable, whether that involves some credit card debt, sure, whatever, you got to do what you got to do. But as soon as you start to feel like the ground is not shaking, it's a lot easier to make decisions that are not so life impacting in the bad way, shall we say. Being in a bad situation creates the ability to make really bad decisions really, really fast. And so when you're in a bad situation, I always like to have what they call like a council, which is you have a couple people that you really trust that you kind of throw ideas past just to feel like maybe you have some people that are in your corner that are kind of rooting for you, whether they're local or not, who knows. Generally speaking, it's always a good idea to have your mom on that council because they'll be the first ones to tell you that you're being stupid. That's actually a Shaquille O'Neal thing. I heard that in a Jordan Harbinger podcast where he interviewed him, and apparently that's what Shaq does. He has a little council of people that he always throws every idea past so that he can kind of gain a perspective. And it's 5 people whose opinions he very much listens to, and he will take the time to not be defensive about their opinions because they know that those 5 people are looking out for them in like the best way possible. So to answer your question, no, I don't think 38 is too late. I think 38's fine. I mean, how many men do you hear, or men, well, people in general, you hear about having midlife crises where they go out and they buy something expensive? It's always something materialistic. But I think if you can mentally reach a point where you realize that you can be content. I hate to break it to you, the human brain is actually designed to have what you call like the midlife crisis. It's actually like a research thing. It's probably a good thing to actually look up if you're curious about that kind of stuff. But there's actually a physiological thing that happens around the middle age where it makes you essentially start to kind of question if what you're doing is good enough. I don't exactly remember why. I remember reading about it once and I was like, oh, that's actually kind of interesting. And actually, it might be that book that talked about it. But yeah, that's my personal perspective of it. I don't think you're in as bad a situation as you think. Oh, he did say he has no savings. Okay, that's bad. But, again, there's always light at the end of the tunnel, and the first thing that you want to do is you just want to get steady. Find yourself steady ground. Don't necessarily worry about luxuries, maybe little tiny luxuries as you get little wins. It's always good to reward yourself. Just don't overdo it, obviously. I'm rooting for you. I really do think that anybody can change their life if they really, really wanted to. Change is hard. Change is tough. But generally speaking, if you actually do it in the right way, you can make some huge changes in your life that I think make it all for the better. Let's do some comments. Hey there, it's me, Dr. D, and I know you're watching this channel and I really appreciate it, and we're having a lot of fun, but something that I have to ask you, can you please like, favorite, and subscribe to this channel? It'd be a really, really helpful thing, and little guys like me, little old chiropractors like me, just trying to make our way in this world here. I keep getting told I'm supposed to tell you guys to do this stuff, so please do. And if you can go to that little bell, I think it's like below us, and you give that a little click, and it says to just remind you when the videos come out, that would just be swell. So thank you very much for watching our videos and making sure that we feel as appreciated as we do, and hey, can't wait to see you in the next one. I get back to the video. So this one is, you don't really have a choice, do you? Get those feet moving, action will make it happen. That's actually a really good point. I do think that there's something to be said about the burning of the ships. I forget the legend, but I forget exactly where the legend came from. But I know they use it in Game of Thrones, where Numeria went to Dorne and burned the ships that they came there with, saying essentially like you're not going anywhere. I forget exactly. There's a real world example. I'll probably put it up there. But there was somebody who went somewhere and then he burned the ships, saying like we're not going anywhere. Like this is it. There is no running away. This is what we are doing. And if you don't have much of a choice, it's it's probably not a great place to be in kind of in general, but knowing that you really have no other choice, it means that you got to keep walking forward. So in some ways, that's kind of a benefit because it makes the decision for you. There's no analysis paralysis, hoping that something might have been better somewhere else. I do agree. It's a bit more of a cynical take on it, I think, but I do agree that just getting started on something will make it a lot easier. Yeah, and just knowing that there's really no other choice means you got to do something, right? So make some phone calls, do some stuff, start shaking, see what falls out. This one's a little bit of a little more of a cynical take, but I think it does actually provide some kind of interesting perspective. I think we all know what the alternative is. You get banned for talking about it, but people think about it constantly because we live in a system that is ever so slightly involved form of slavery. Every single person on the planet knows why the dolphins at SeaWorld won't eat and are drowning, but when humans are having a mental health crisis and there's an explosion in the worst type of statistics, everybody stands around hemming and hawing about what an unsolvable mystery it is. Yes, I agree. I do think that the world as it's currently designed is not great for the little guy. I do think that there's definitely a level of personal responsibility when it comes to finding contentment on your own, but I fully am aware that it's tough. Like the way that things are set up right now is if you let the wind blow you around completely, it's going to blow you into places you don't want to be. I do agree that the weird inability for the foundation of whatever the government is or whatever you want to call it, like where the money's going, doesn't focus more on the mental health crisis that is, what's been going on in the United States, especially these days. And I'm not even just talking about like specifically like men versus, men's health versus female's health or whatever, but I do think that the primary comment that holds back the idea of doing anything about the mental health crisis is because there's a lot of people that are just in the suck it up category. Again, I don't think they're completely wrong on some level. I do think that there's some things that we as people probably could kind of get over a little bit more easily than we probably do. And I think there's a little bit of a internal and external locus of control, discussion that you could have there. The world is definitely against us when it comes to trying to find some kind of personal enjoyment, especially in a capitalistic type environment. And not that I don't appreciate capitalism and a lot of the good things it's done for us, but when you think about constantly going around everywhere and marketing constantly trying to tell you that you don't have enough or that you are not enough, can get kind of exhausting in a lot of ways. And once you kind of see the through lines of what it is that marketing is and what it does and all that, it's a lot easier to kind of ignore it. If you have to listen to an ad or whatever, just do something else. Like read a book when there's an ad or something going on, because all ads are going to want you to do is spend the limited resources that you do have on something that you may not even need. And if there's stuff out there you want, that's great. Don't get me wrong. You can go ahead and buy it if you have the money to do it and all that. But if you just let random messages out in the world tell you who you are and like the quality of person you are because you don't have a new Cadillac or whatever the heck it happens to be, that's not very healthy. Let's put it that way. But I do agree. It's a dang shame that statistically speaking, not even men, but just the idea that we are kind of like not really trying to address the mental health problems in a way that is probably on the more sustainable side. I think there's obviously a lack of proper interest in that in the top level. I'm just going to put it that way. But I do agree that probably that should be better handled, I think, on some level. Yeah. And again, this person right here, 38 sounds like a good time to me. You have a wealth of knowledge gain and a long life ahead. Jam on it, my brother. Yeah, I was gonna say 38 is not that old. I think at 38, that's kind of like when you want this stuff to happen because you still have like plenty of life, but you have skills at that point. 30 is really interesting because you still kind of have like that youthful energy to you, and you don't, or at least personally, you don't feel like you're over the hill quite yet, but you have like the ability to do things now that you didn't have when you were 28. And especially now, like when you hit the 30s, you like, at least again, I'm lucky enough to have a career where I have a little bit of like disposable income. Not a lot, mind you. It's a lot easier to get through life now. It just kind of becomes like a little bit easier as you get older, It's like there's still these like stupid things that make life kind of weirdly complicated sometimes, but generally speaking, it's actually when I got 30, as soon as I had my 30s, I was like, wow, life's actually way better than it used to be. I'm actually a huge fan of this. I like this one. Kind of commenting above with the whole like you don't have much of a choice thing. What choice do you have? Would it be ideal to have $5 million in the bank with a paid off house, nice car, stable career, and a family that loves you? Yeah, but you have to live in reality and you only get one life. Alternatively, you could be an old man living in the rubble of a war-torn country with a dead family and no prospects to rebuild. So yeah, it sucks, but it isn't the worst case scenario. You've got about 30-ish years before retirement, so pick yourself up and work hard. Nobody gets to take it with them when they die anyway, so find the balance between building some stability for yourself, but also enjoying life as you go. Yeah, right there. That's kind of the general gist of what I think, at least my personal philosophy of being a dude. Like, there's going to be things in life where you're like, this stinks. This is butts. I'm sorry I had to use that language, but this is a butt situation. But no matter what I do, it doesn't really change, or at least what I do mentally, if I just sit there in anguish over it, it doesn't make it any better. If anything, it makes it worse. So if you think about the situation of people all over this world, the way I like to, and this is something I think Ryan Holiday said from the Daily Stoic, which is there are people in this world that would kill another human being to have the same problems that I have. And that really put it into perspective for me, where my problems all of a sudden start to get a lot smaller once you realize that there are people in this world where their house exploded because some maniacal, insane person in charge of a country that has access to bombs decided to just blow your house up, and you had no say in the matter. Now all of a sudden you got a really bad situation because there's really not a whole lot you can do in regards to making a huge difference in the overall scheme of things, just as just like one person, right? If that makes sense. That might seem kind of harsh, but unfortunately there's a lot of people that have been stuck in that situation. And what happens is you rise up as best you can. And I don't want to say pull yourself up by bootstraps. There's a lot of negativity to that kind of mentality, but there's a certain point where you have to kind of, again, just kind of walk forward. And being a man, I think, is being able to do that do it well and with some, personal scruples. It's my opinion. And this will be my last one. Short answer. Nope. Not too old. Hard. Yes. Worth it. 1,000,000%. I went from being married to what I thought was my dream girl, successful job, making $250K. Damn, that's pretty good. That's a good job. All the toys, a truck, motorcycle, off-road toys, boat, etc., to living in an RV in my parents' backyard around that age. I bet. You know what? Honestly, I thought about buying an RV or even just a mobile home not too long ago, and I was like, you know what? Actually, it would be kind of nice to live in something like that small. I mean, it would be hard to put all my stuff into it, but there's something to be said about just kind of simple living. I went through about 6 months of woe is me, drinking, drugs, etc., depression, feeling sorry for myself. Don't do that, or at least keep that period as short as possible. Avoid the alcohol and any other coping mechanism. Therapy helps if you can do it. Lean on friends and family if you can. Eventually you realize if you can get through this, nothing can kill you. Exercise, eat as well as you can, get outside. You have the chance to rebuild stronger than ever before. It's been 2 years. I'm not making money like I was, but I have more freedom working for myself now. I was able to move somewhere I actually wanted to live. I am rebuilding my finances. I met a girl while at my lowest who I know won't bail when things get tough. I'm the fittest I've ever been. I know nothing can kill me now. Do this right and you'll emerge a new you, a better you, with a new perspective on life and values. I didn't have the kid element, but happy to chat via PM if it can help in any way. Again, that's exactly what I'm saying. It's like, even when you are put in the worst kind of situation, if you can make good decisions, in this case, avoiding alcohol and all that stuff, like, again, having a drink to kind of break the stress of the day, that's one thing. Requiring a substance to continue to get through life, that is not healthy. That is not a good idea. And it will 100% change the chemistry of your brain. And you see a lot of people in general who become dependent on certain substances to get through the day. It's not healthy. And generally speaking, it doesn't end well. I'll put it that way. But yeah, if you could get through this, if you exercise and try and make as many good decisions as you can on a daily basis, it will make a world of difference, is all I'll put. That's just what that's my opinion, or whatever, go do your thing or whatever. But I think if this person has the right mentality, don't depend on other people too. Like, again, the dream girl thing, you see that story all the time where, the guy gets abandoned by the love of his life when he's at his lowest because, because the lady will see it from like her perspective and how it's affecting her life, again, for better or for worse. I'm not here to pass judgment on that, but it's a good idea to make sure that the castle of your own mind is strong enough to withstand the pressures of your life without the help of others. But if you can get the help of others, that's even better. People you trust anyway. So there you go. Yeah, there's a lot of really good comments in this one. If you're personally interested, you could probably look this one up on Reddit. But yeah, I agree. The end message here is it's never too late to make a good change in your life. I think even if it's just one good decision that you might not have made before, if you keep making tiny good decisions, it'll lead to really big good decisions. In this situation, it sucks. There's certainly worse situations that you could possibly be in. I, again, don't think that it's a good idea to compare yourself to others in a way where you don't consider the fact that you have been on this earth for 38 years and you have gained skills that are useful. You are not useless. You are, I think, a good person, if I'm reading it correctly, at least from the perspective of that you were worried about your kids having a place to live. I think that speaks volumes of the quality of you as a person, which means that if that's how you view the world, people are probably going to like you just because of the fact that you're probably going to be more friendly and thoughtful of others. And people like to be thought of, that's just kind of a part of the human experience. I'll leave you on that one. Thank you very much for watching this. If you like this kind of stuff, give me a heads up in the comments and all that. I'm more than willing to talk about more life-based stuff as opposed to just back pain type stuff. It's very important to me that you, if you're watching this, you enjoy your life. And I think thinking about these kinds of things makes life a lot more enjoyable for everybody around you and for yourself, of course. So please, I hope you have an absolutely wonderful week. I'll talk to you next week. Have a wonderful time. Stay cool. Summer right now. It's kind of hot. I'll talk to you guys next week.